The injury bug is taking a nasty bite out of our depth chart down at Hollis Hall, and the panic button was almost hit this weekend. A promising young speedster had to bounce from practice early, leaving fans by the lakefront totally sweating. We just got the official word from the medical tent, and the update is thankfully a massive sigh of relief. But the absolute best part of this whole situation is what the coaching staff just revealed about this kid behind closed doors. His mindset is completely blowing veterans away, and you must see this. The Chicago Bears are holding their collective breath after wide receiver Zavion Thomas walked off the practice field Sunday, nursing a knee injury. This newcomer has already turned heads in camp with his explosive speed, effectively stepping into reps with the starters after the unfortunate news that Luther Burden will miss the remainder of training camp and the preseason. According to ESPN reporter Courtney Cronin, the team currently classifies Thomas as day-to-day, with early reports suggesting he is dealing with general soreness rather than anything catastrophic. The bottom line here is that any lost time for a developing rookie is a hurdle, especially in a system as demanding as the one our staff runs. We saw firsthand last year that guys like Burden and Colston Loveland needed extra time to acclimate before truly finding their footing on the roster. Fortunately, special teams coordinator Richard Hightower has been vocal about Thomas possessing a level of maturity that stands out from his peers, noting that the young receiver constantly asks detailed situational questions rather than simple, rote ones. His commitment to being a sponge for knowledge, even going so far as to coordinate with veteran Caliph Raymond on his own training routines, provides some hope that he can mentally process the playbook even while he is sidelined from physical contact. We are holding on to the expectation that this brief setback will not derail his growth or impact his ability to compete for offensive targets once he is cleared. If the team is being this cautious with a minor soreness issue, are they hiding a greater concern about his long-term durability in such a high-speed role? The front office surely feels the sting of these consecutive roster hits, particularly after taking the calculated risk to prioritize high-upside offensive weapons over immediate defensive line reinforcements during the draft. General Manager Ryan Poles openly acknowledged that the team chose to double down on skill players like Sam Roush and Thomas despite calls for more trench depth. This strategy rests entirely on the hope that these rookies can quickly master a complex system, a tall order even for a third-round selection with as much raw physical potential as Thomas. And this is the part that gets me, as it reminds me of the developmental growing pains we witnessed last year with other high-pedigree additions who didn't see the field until they fully adjusted to the professional workload. Behind the scenes, the staff is likely weighing if this current soreness is a minor hurdle or a recurring red flag for a player expected to shoulder a dual role as both a receiver and a return specialist. They are watching closely to see if he can mentally digest the playbook while stationary, banking on the fact that study habits aren't hindered by a knee brace. The organization remains confident that his transition will yield results, but the margin for error grows thinner by the day with the preseason clock ticking. If he misses significant reps, the team will have to reconsider how aggressively they integrate him into the offensive rotation, perhaps scaling back his initial workload to protect his long-term health while he continues to prove he belongs among the starters against top-tier competition. Shifting away from the individual health update, let us examine what this situation implies for the broader roster strategy. Here is where it gets interesting as we look at the immediate pressure this puts on the Chicago Bears depth chart. With the injury occurring during a Sunday practice, the team is forced to shuffle personnel prematurely while they are still trying to identify which receivers can reliably handle the workload. This is a real test for the organization because if a third-round selection like Thomas cannot bridge the gap to full-time status quickly, the offensive versatility expected this season starts to thin out significantly. The stakes are particularly high because the coaching staff envisioned using his speed to stretch defenses, which was supposed to be a key variable for success in upcoming high-stakes matchups. Without that specific weapon on the field, the scheme becomes less dynamic and harder to execute effectively against division rivals who are already building their own defensive packages to limit our explosive plays. If he remains sidelined, we are essentially looking at an offense that lacks the depth to respond to adjustments during pivotal games. This reality forces the front office to reconsider their gamble on drafting for skill positions rather than shoring up the trenches, a choice that now looks much riskier than it did a week ago. Every lost practice rep delays the rhythm required to secure a playoff spot in a competitive conference, and the team simply cannot afford to have their primary offensive depth chart in flux when the calendar turns toward meaningful games that will define the success of this entire year. The immediate upside to this injury is that it forces our coaching staff to test the depth of the receiver room, providing a chance for other hungry playmakers to demonstrate their readiness under pressure. By pushing guys like Khalif Raymond or even the undrafted talent to step into higher leverage roles, the team can find out exactly who can handle the complexity of this offensive system. This is where it gets real, because the downside is quite significant for a rookie trying to build rapport with the quarterback while battling minor physical setbacks. Missing crucial snaps against starting caliber defensive backs in camp slows down the vital mental conditioning required for him to process route trees on the fly. While some analysts on social media speculate that our focus on offensive skill players might have been a misplaced gamble compared to shoring up defensive line needs, others argue that having this much depth in the receiving core is a modern necessity. My honest take here is that the alarmist reaction is likely overblown, as these small knocks are just part of the grind in a long professional year. We have seen players like Luther Burden or Colston Loveland struggle to make an impact initially, only to find their stride once they fully acclimated to the speed of the professional game. I am not entirely sold on the idea that this minor day-to-day soreness will derail his season, especially given his reported work ethic and his habit of studying the playbook while healing up. If he keeps acting like a sponge, he will be ready to contribute the moment he gets back on the grass. When you combine the latest update on Zavion Thomas's knee with the broader trajectory of this roster, it becomes clear that the franchise is betting heavily on the intellectual makeup of its youngest athletes. The truth is, while watching a promising third-round pick leave the practice field is never easy, our long-term outlook depends less on one afternoon of soreness and more on whether these newcomers can absorb this complex playbook while sidelined. You should feel optimistic that the coaching staff has prioritized high-character, intelligent players who treat the game like a professional craft rather than just a physical exercise. The dedication Thomas has shown in his meeting rooms, as described by Richard Hightower, suggests he will continue his development even without taking snaps. We are witnessing a clear shift in how this front office evaluates talent, moving away from simple physical tools toward players who demonstrate the maturity to handle a professional workload. This strategy provides a distinct cushion against the standard injury cycles that derail less disciplined teams. Instead of panicking over a day-to-day injury, we can appreciate the foresight in adding depth so that the system remains operational even when setbacks occur. If Thomas can maintain this mental pace while he heals, he will be ready to contribute effectively during the regular season, proving that our investment in his unique skill set was well-founded. Do you believe the maturity level Richard Hightower identified in Zavion Thomas is enough to offset the time he will miss during this training camp? If you enjoyed the video, do not forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Bear down. I'll see you in the next one.